But housing, yeah, let's talk about that. Uh, Prices have gone up after bottoming out. Prices have gone up, even zoomed up here in Southern California, zoomed up. But we're seeing sales really stagnant, right?
Well, one of the dynamics that's happened, especially in California, I mean, where is there a more desirable place to live
Nowhere.
than California, and especially Southern California? In most ways, and I'm a native Californian, although I don't live there anymore. And one of the reasons I left was because of the business unfriendliness of regulations and the incredible taxation there. I now live in Tennessee, and I got to tell you, I don't miss California anymore. But anyway, back to the housing piece. There have been a tremendous number of investors, institutional investors and small individual investors, buying up properties in Southern California with the belief that they saw the prices rising. And I'm not talking about values, because values it's a difficult thing to pinpoint. Right. Because what's a house really worth? Well, it's worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. So all of a sudden you have a demand for housing and investors buying up a lot of housing. The institutional investors were paying higher than list price to secure those properties because they believed as long as they were buying the properties at less than what is the replacement cost for that same house, that they were making a sound investment. But what you're seeing now is the affordability index has gotten to a point where the sales have stalled because there's not enough people entering the first-time buyer market because of tighter lending requirements, and there's it's much more, and the job situation like we talked about. Yeah. So now you're seeing prices stalling in California. There's a tremendous demand, but you can't afford it.
Right.
And now a lot of these institutional investors right now are selling off the properties because they're discovering that their business model was flawed. They did not expect to see housing prices stall and then start going back the wrong way. So it's going to have a cascade effect even in California.
And a lot of banks, have these foreclosed homes, and they've been sitting on them. They haven't even put them up in the market. You see empty homes just sitting there, some of them for years out here. And I guess they were just waiting for that, Lynn, to go up, and then they would release them, and there's this big demand. But like you said, now things are kind of stalling. And where do you see that's when the bubble happens, the bursting of the bubble, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're going to see, other parts of the country are already experiencing this, and that you can drive through parts of the Midwest, and one of the hardest hit areas obviously is Chicago and the greater Ohio market, especially near Cleveland. A lot of boarded up properties. And you can buy homes in some of those communities. In Detroit, for example, yeah. You can buy a house with a credit card.
Yeah.
And prices are being forced down again, and there's so many indicators that are showing that we're headed for another downturn. I mean, the foreclosure backlogs in any state that has judicial foreclosures, that backlog has been growing for years, and it takes in states like Massachusetts and New York up to 3 years to go through the foreclosure process. So that stuff's sitting out there in addition to the shadow inventory, which is what you were alluding to a few minutes ago, where you've got banks that they have properties, they've foreclosed on them, but they're not putting them on the market. So you have a false sense of, there's not that much, there aren't that many properties out there, so, things must be great. Well, if everybody released the properties that they had, you'd see that things are still pretty bad. And we've never really gotten out of the last recession. This is the longest recession we have ever experienced. And, the Great Depression obviously was not a recession, it was worse. But this is the longest protracted recession in our nation's history, and the biggest reason for that is we haven't been able to get people back to meaningful work.
Yes. And there's